Okay, so Hishamer Menega Tzaras tells us that, be careful, don't get Tzaras by not speaking Lashanhara. That's for sure. However, that's not the actual mitzvah lo saseh in the Torah. There's an actual lo saseh that the Sefer HaChinuch and Rambam count as one of the mitzvahs, one of the 613 mitzvahs. And it's not to not speak Lashon Hara. We learn Lashon Hara from other psukim in the Torah. So what is the mitzvah of Hishamer Minegot Saras? The mitzvah is as follows. If a person has a nega, if a person has a spot on their skin, they have to guard that spot, meaning they are not allowed to try to cut it off. They're not allowed to try to cover it over and hide the fact that there is an outbreak of something on their skin. They have to safeguard that nega and bring it to the Kohen and show it to the Kohen and see, is this actually tzara'as or not, right? That's going back many months to the Parshas of Tazria and Mitzorah, right? When a person gets eczema, right? A person gets something like psoriasis. One of my rebbeim told me that he thinks the word psoriasis comes from tzara'as, right? Sounds like it, right? It's very interesting, yeah. And it's exactly the way that it's described in the Torah. Almost. It's hard to know exactly what it is, but in the olden days, in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, a person would get a patch of funny skin that happens to people, right? When you get older, especially, it happens more and more, right? And you'd have to go to a Kohen and show them this patch of skin and say, what's the story here? Is it the Kohen would, either paskin on the spot and say it's tzras, get out of here. You have to move out of your house and out of the camp, and it's a whole big deal. Or the Kohen would say, make a mark on it and say, let's see what happens, and right, the whole process. But the mitzvah of Hishomer Minega Tzaras is that I have to do that process. I can't try to take away the nega. I can't try to take away the blemish by cutting it off or doing something else. So the Sefer HaChinuch, as he does, who explains the shoresh of the mitzvah, he writes obviously in that introduction that we do all the mitzvahs whether we understand them or not, and our understanding of the mitzvahs is at best an aspect of them, right? And all of the mitzvahs we have to do fully, whether or not we fully understand them or understand them at all. However, at the same time, it helps us to understand what the mitzvahs are coming to teach us, how the mitzvahs are coming to better us, what's the lesson, what's the moral that this mitzvah is coming to convey. Right? So that the Sefer HaChinuch is well known for this idea. And on this mitzvah, he tells us a very, very powerful life lesson in Emunah and Bitachon, and especially when it comes to the topic of dealing with Yisurim. What are Yisurim? Hardships, difficulties, right? We spent a lot of time in Sefer Tomer Devorah, right, talking about Yisurim in all different forms last year, right? Like we learned a lot about what Yisurim do for us and how they do what they do and all of those things, right? So what we're going to see in the Sefer HaChinuch is something very, very powerful about this. And he says that the root of this mitzvah is as follows. When Hashem sends a person a blemish on their skin, right, and they might have tzara'as, there's a reason for that, right? The reason we don't have tzara'as anymore is because we don't merit it, right? We're not on the level that we deserve to get tzara'as, right? Tzara'as is like, but really all Yisurim are a gift from Hashem, right? It's all there to help us and to better us, right? It's very hard to live life seeing it that way, right? Very hard. One of life's main challenges, in fact, is trying to see it that way, right? However, the idea of tzara'as, right, for us is maybe even easier to appreciate that way because it's spiritual and because we don't have it, right? So we could see tzara'as as something like, wow, that's amazing. Can you imagine being in a generation where they were zochet to get tzara'as, like where, where Hashem would tell them when they're not doing stuff okay and make it so clear and evident, right? That's a big schus, right? We don't have that, right? So when a person gets tzara'as, there's a reason for that. Hashem is coming and knocking on that person's door and trying to convey something to them, right? Chazal tell us when Yisurim ba'im la'adam, when Yisurim, when difficulties happen to me. So I have a responsibility. Fash fesh by myself. I have to check myself out, or yamash fesh by myself. I have to try to improve myself. I have to look and see what's going on with me. And it doesn't mean try to figure out why Hashem did this to me. That's not what it's about. We're not trying to be a prophet, a navi, and figure out why Hashem just made this thing happen. But the idea is if something happened, it's something that tells me I'm supposed to look at myself and try to improve and try to pick up my game, in some way or another, right? That's the idea. And a person who goes ahead and ignores that message, right? And instead of like taking that message and going to the Kohen and showing the tzaras and hoping, davening that it's going to be okay, you know what I mean? Instead of doing that, right, and maybe facing that 7 days of going outside of the camp and all of that embarrassment and maybe going to miss a simcha or something important to him during the course of that time, right? So instead of facing that, what's the person going to do instead? They're going to cut off that mark, right? So the Sefer Chinuch says this mitzvah is coming and telling us, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're going to game Hashem? You're going to game the system, right? Like Hashem is giving you a message over here. Hashem is bringing, something to your doorstep. And if it's deserving, if it's actually tzaras, and you have to go out of the camp for 7 days, so Hashem is giving you a punishment over here. Hashem is giving you something that it's your job to go ahead and deal with it, right? You think you're going to get out of it by cutting off the tzaras, right? Is that you really think that that's going to work? That you're going to beat Hashem at his own game, right? If he's giving you the tzaras, there's a reason, right? There's a reason that it's there. It's for you to take that message. And a person who is going to go ahead and, instead of take that message, but try to avoid it, try to pretend, right? It's going to come back and get him anyway. They can't beat Hashem. Hashem's going to get another way that person is going to have to go through exactly that level of embarrassment and exactly the level of pain, but now it's going to be more because he's dug himself even deeper with this, right? Now he's done an aveira to try to avoid going through the suffering that Hashem has planned out for him, right? So there's no question, right? When we have a headache, we have to take a Tylenol, right? We were just talking about this in the previous class, right? We always have to do our ishtadlus. We always have, if I'm hungry, I don't say, oh, well, Hashem wants me to suffer and keep me, in this state. So I'm certainly not going to eat because I'm supposed to be suffering. No. If hunger is alleviated by food and I have food accessible to me, so that it's my responsibility to alleviate my suffering by giving myself food. If I have a headache and I have the opportunity to take a Tylenol to get rid of my headache, it's the wrong thing to do to say, okay, I'm just going to sit with my headache because that's what Hashem wants, right? We're supposed to daven to get better. We're supposed to do whatever hishtadlus we can do, right? However, if that hishtadlus crosses a line, right, into something that we're not allowed to do, then that's not something that is part of what we're supposed to be doing to get out of this situation, right? Let's say you're dealing with another person, right? This happens, I'll make a very general case, but these types of things happen all the time. You're dealing with another person, let's say, you're already in the age of shidduchim, and you hear there's somebody out there who's like, spreading all sorts of bad things about you. And you know that you could threaten her, that some really bad thing about her. And if, she tells one more person, you're gonna, spread this all around, right? And you really are suffering, let's say, from what this person did, right? Let's say you heard there's 2 or 3 people that said no to you because of what she did, and it's really hurting you, and it's painful for you, right? And you feel like you could totally solve your situation by going out there and spreading this Lashanhara about her, right? So can you do that? No way. No way. You can ask a shayla, you can ask a rav and say, am I allowed to do this, right? And maybe there'll be a reason that you can, right? But no, that's not one of the things that you can do in order to save yourself from another person's attacking you, right? Sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes when we keep the Torah, we have to take a little bit of a patch and not patch back. Because if patching back is usher to do, then you're right. I have to be the loser in this situation, right? But the second that I start to think, that by doing something wrong, by cutting corners in halacha, or doing an outright avera, or the second that I start to think that I can better my situation by doing something that I can't do, that's Hishamar Menega Tzoraz. Then I have to take a step back and say, well, okay, wait a second here. Like, who am I playing with over here? Who am I cheating with? Whose game am I trying to outsmart over here, right? If Hashem has this coming to me, this embarrassment or whatever this is, and and there's nothing I can do to stop it, and there's nothing I can do, again, halakhically, that's okay for me to do, so then this is what's coming to me, and that's min hashamayim, and that's the type of situation that a person has the opportunity to be makabel their yisurim ba'ahava, right? That's part of being makabel yisurim ba'ahava is, realizing that I'm not going to stoop to do the wrong thing in order to get out of my yisurim. Right? I'm not going to do something wrong. Right? It's very simply, a person's very hungry, and the only food that's available is like not an appropriate hechsher. Right? So if it's okay, right? You could ask and speak to the mashgiach and find out. Mashgiach will tell you, no, it's okay, right? But let's say you're somewhere and there's nothing, and there's no mashgiach, and the guy behind the counter, barely has a yarmulke. He goes, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's only rabbanut, but there's the money and this and that, and right, and the other thing, right? And under normal circumstances, you would never buy from that place, right? So to think that by buying from that place to alleviate my suffering, right? Unless it's pikuach nefesh, of course. Pikuach nefesh, you can eat not kosher, right? But to alleviate my, so to speak, my suffering by doing something wrong, by compromising, so it's not going to get me anywhere. And even if it feels like it did, right? Lamaisa, I bought that slice of questionable pizza and I ate it and I feel full now. So look, I alleviated my suffering, right? But again, who am I tricking over here, right? Hashem didn't intend, so to speak, for my suffering to end right now. He didn't intend for me to break the Torah, to not continue to be hungry, right? So it's going to come back on me. And now it's going to come back on me deeper because I did something further wrong. You know what I'm saying? So there's a very, very powerful message in this mitzvah about being makabel yisurim, ba'ava, being makabel yisurim, being makabel what Hashem throws my way. Again, within halacha, I have to do whatever I can to make my situation better. Whatever halachically I'm allowed to do, I have to do to make it better, right? But let's say it's Shabbos, and to make my situation better, I have to. Oh, the best example. Okay, this is the best example. I forgot that I give this example almost always. I give this example. Okay, a person's got a huge pimple on Shabbos. This is a great example. You wake up Shabbos morning. It's your sister's, Shabbos kala, who knows what, and everybody's there. Everyone's there, and you're telling yourself, oh my goodness, for shidduchim, this is going to destroy me, and this, and all the other things, right? This gigantic pimple, and all these other things, right? So, I have two choices. Choice number one is to walk around with this hideous pimple and be, embarrassed and try to pretend I don't see everybody's eyes, like, staring down at my chin while I'm talking to them and whatever. That's option number one. And option number two is to, break Shabbos and take care of this pimple, right? I think this is a very relatable type of a situation that a person can find themselves in, right? So I have to realize I'm not saving myself anything if I do that. I'm not, even though it feels like I am. It's going to feel like I'm going to feel so much better by walking around knowing I don't have that pimple, right? But I'm not saving myself anything. Hashem is going to bring that around some other way. And again, and I've made it worse for myself by doing something wrong in the process. So we should be zocha, Hashem, to be, makabel our yisurim ba'ava, to realize Hashem is putting me through something. There's a reason, and yeah, I don't enjoy it. I'm not happy about it, but if Hashem is doing it to me, He knows what He's doing, and if I can get out of it by doing the right thing, for sure. But the second that it crosses over, and in order to better my situation, I have to do something wrong, right, or hurt another person, or I ask a shaila and I'm told not to do it, but I go ahead and do it anyway or something. So that's mamish this aveira b'shamar menega tzaras. I have to be tough on that. I can't beat Hashem in His own game, and I have to be makabel what He says and that follow through. So I want to leave you off with this bracha for this year because Shana Bet, more than Shana Aleph, for some reason it's just this way. And I think it's because a lot of you are, you're more open to the experience. So Hashem lets you have it. But Shana Bet is so much more often not about what you thought you wanted it to be about. You know what I mean? In other words, Shana Aleph, a lot of people have a certain thought of what they think it's going to be and what they want it to be. And very often, Shana Aleph, even though it's different completely, but it's like along the lines. I find by much more Shana Bet, people come in much more like focused, which is great, and much more prepared for growth, which is great. And at the same time, they end up growing and experiencing and developing in ways that they did not plan on, and that the experience of being here brought their way. And I'm asking you to let yourselves be open to that, be open to that experience, be open to having bitachon in Hashem. And yes, of course, you have to do what you came here to do. And of course, you have to focus on your avoda and, the things that you want to work on and that you came here to work on, for sure. Set out and work on that. And at the same time, be open to what Hashem throws your way. Be open to realizing that there may be challenges that you didn't want and didn't think you were going to have, and now you have them. And that's something that Hashem wants you to be dealing with and wants you to be going through. And you hear what I'm saying? And I think it's a very, very freeing aspect to yourselves for Shabbat, to let yourselves go and say, I'm going to do my best to grow and thrive. And I'm also going to be open to taking this year where Hashem takes me, and not trying to write the script, but being open to having it be written with me. So that's what I'd like to say. Any questions about Shabbos or anything, or Parsha, anything at all? Yeah.
About the example you gave?
Yeah.
So, do you mean Shabbat by covering it? If you're not allowed to cover it?
Well, let's say either way. Well, I mean, covering it like with a Band-Aid you could do, but let's say with makeup or something like that you're not allowed to use on Shabbos, or let's say popping it in a way that you're not allowed to on Shabbos or something like that. I just mean, any which way that would be a way that's not allowed. But a Band-Aid that is not like taped over on itself, you could use on Shabbos. So if somebody has to, right. Right.
Hi, Rabbi.
Okay, yay, Lisa. Hello. Okay, fine. Have a great Shabbos, ladies. So more questions. Yeah, go ahead. Great. I'm not rushing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I ask here?
Well, you're right. It's not a matter of a punishment, but they're all there for you to be experiencing, right? Whether it's partly punishment, partly a challenge, if it's all wrapped together, right? We never know. There's something. Well, so the guilt aspect is, that's self-inflicted. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, tshuva does not have to involve guilt. Guilt and tshuva don't exactly go. I have actually on YouTube, I have a shir about this. I gave it a number of years ago. Tshuva and guilt are not inherently connected with each other. Guilt is more often than not, and it inhibits growth. It doesn't inspire growth. You know what I'm saying? Guilt, more often than not, makes a person feel less worthy, less able, less likely to try harder. You know what I'm saying? So guilt is not a part of tshuva. Charata, regret, is a part of tshuva, but that's not guilt. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between the two. So you're right. We don't know why anything happens to us. And yes, it's the wrong thing to go around saying, and it's explicit like this in the Shulchan Aruch, that you're not allowed to say, oh, I'm so bad and I'm constantly getting paid back and I deserve so much bad. You're not allowed to say that, right? Because, Hashem is a Baal Chesed, and we're supposed to look at Hashem as a Baal Chesed. And at the same time, we all go through stuff all the time in our lives. So those things that we're going through, we don't know what's a challenge, what's a punishment, what's here to have us grow, what's here, we just have no idea. But what we know is that we have to approach them, whatever they are, we have to approach them the exact same way, which is, do the right thing, be good, ask questions when I don't know what to do, and try to follow the, and not to do averas to try to better my situation, right? So often, I just speak for myself, I feel like doing something underhanded or something like that when I'm in like a difficult situation with another person. And, to recognize that, even though it might sort of help me in this situation, if I did something like that, in the long run, in the big picture, I'm not helping myself and I'm actually hurting myself. And to be makabel a situation. And I'm telling you, this happened to us. And after it fixed me, like when we first opened Tomer Devorah, there was a certain person here in Israel, a person who was involved in chinuch. And let's assume he thought he was acting l'shem shemayim. Let's assume I'm being very much dam l'kafschus. But he really, this is like hard to believe. Nobody knows who this person is anymore, whatever. But he actively went on a Lashanhara campaign against Tomer Devorah opening before we opened. For real, this is like a true story. Speaking to other seminary heads, speaking to high schools in America, specific people who I remember that we spoke about this. Mamash, a person who, for whatever reason, didn't think that Tomer Devorah should open, and he led a Lashanhara campaign against us, and got students from his seminary that he was involved in to speaking at. Anyway, so Rabbi Fix and I went to speak to Rabbi David Refsin. Rabbi Refsin is a very special person, Gadol, who's the person who built Neve, right? Of course, okay, right. So we went to go to speak to David Refsin. He's the person who literally started Neve, like from a class given around the kitchen table, basically, to this empire, that it is today. A very special person from England. And so we went to go speak to him when we were opening Tomer Devorah just to get advice. We went to go speak to a number of heads of seminaries, just for advice and just for ideas. And one of the things we spoke to him about was this story, this situation that we were actively dealing with at the time. And Rabbi Fix and I had, through a person who used to work for that person, whatever, we had certain documents that showed illegal activity that this person did. Mamash illegal stuff, like, moving seminary money into personal money and something like this, buying a house and putting it in somebody else's name. We mamash had the papers, whatever, like, a person that gave them to us. And I'll never forget this. Mamash never forget this. So like we said to Rabbi Refson, we said to him, look, we can expose this person or whatever, for his financial healings. And Rabbi Refson, he said, let me ask you something. Are you B'nai Torah? Look, he said this. Are you B'nai Torah? Are you a Ben Torah? Is it important to you that you should be a person who, follows the Torah and keeps halacha and, is an Eved Hashem? And so we said, yeah, we'd like to think that we're B'nai Torah. So he says, certain things B'nai Torah just don't do. That's it. Just, so he's not a Ben Torah. Too bad, right? Everyone thinks he is. Okay, everyone's thinks he's a big rabbi. This that. Okay, that happens in this world. It's disappointing. It happens, right? But the Maisa, if to Rabbi Fix and me, our being a Ben Torah is something that we value. So then, we're gonna get beaten up on this one, and that's it. There's just gonna be Lashanhara out there, and we're just gonna take it. And the Maisa, look, 16 years later, didn't really affect us, right? I'm serious. At the time, we were very distraught. We were very, very distraught about it. But, what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, girls aren't going to come. This could shut us down. We really, I mean? Like, you have, so I know in retrospect, Baruch Hashem protected us and didn't really affect us, all these things. But I feel so much better that I can use this as a story, what I'm saying, of chizuk, than if I would have won that round by doing something nasty. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I feel so much better about myself. You know what I'm saying? So, not to mention that, again, if that's what was meant to be, it was meant to be, and nothing I was going to do was going to change that. Okay, is there a question? Elise has a question?
Yes. Hi.
Hi,
I missed the beginning because I didn't realize this was happening, but I wanted to know how you brought checking yourself from your Surim from the Parsha. You were talking about the Parsha, or just surrounded?
Okay, no. So we explained just the idea that when you get saras, I think you missed the very beginning. So when you get saras, you're not allowed to cut away the mark because if Hashem is afflicting you, there's a reason for it. So you're not allowed to scrape it away and try to hide from the fact that you got it.
And that is found in this week's Parsha. That's how it connected.
That's in this week's Parsha. Hishomer minega saras. And everything that I said is based on the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch explains the mitzvah this way.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. So I don't have time for more of this now. I have to get back for Shabbos. It's like kind of late, but I'll find the link and I'll send you guys a link and we'll talk more about it next week. But I have a link about this on the. We'll discuss it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So let me stop this. Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody. Great to see you. Good to see you. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.